Imagine this for a moment. What if Odin still had both of his eyes? Would he still be the wisest and most feared god in Norse mythology? Many of you are probably wondering how losing just one eye could change everything about the Allfather we know and love. But wait, you might be thinking, it's just one eye. How much could that really change? Well, let me tell you, this isn't just about vision. This is about destiny, sacrifice, and the very soul of Odin himself. The ripple effects of this single decision would reshape the entire Norse cosmos in ways you've probably never considered. Now, you're probably curious about why Odin sacrificed his eye in the first place, right? He wanted wisdom from Mimir's well, the kind of knowledge that could see into the future and understand the deepest secrets of the universe. He chose to trade his most precious physical possession for something invisible, knowledge and foresight. Can you imagine making that choice? Trading your sight for insight? But here's what makes this sacrifice even more incredible. Mimir didn't just ask for any payment. He specifically demanded Odin's eye because he knew the true cost of wisdom. It wasn't about the physical loss. It was about proving that Odin valued knowledge more than his own comfort, more than his vanity, more than anything else in existence. But here's where things get really interesting. What if Odin never made that sacrifice? What if he kept both eyes and remained just an ordinary god with regular divine intelligence? The consequences would be absolutely staggering. Many of you are probably wondering what would happen to the world if Odin never gained that cosmic wisdom. Well, let me paint a picture that might shock you. Without his sacrifice to Mimir, Odin would have no prophetic abilities, no visions of Ragnarok, no knowledge of the twilight of the gods. Do you see where this is going? He'd be living in blissful ignorance of the apocalypse heading straight for Asgard. And here's something even more terrifying. Without foresight, Odin wouldn't understand the cyclical nature of Norse cosmology. He wouldn't know that destruction leads to rebirth, that endings create new beginnings. He'd be trapped in a linear mindset, unable to see the bigger picture of cosmic renewal. If Odin never knew about Ragnarok, why would he create Valhalla? Why would he gather fallen warriors? Why would he prepare for a war he didn't know was coming? Many of you are probably thinking, well, maybe Asgard would be more peaceful. And you'd be right. Without the constant preparation for Doomsday, the gods might have lived in harmony. No tension, no paranoia, no desperate gathering of Einherjar warriors. But here's the terrifying part. When Ragnarok actually arrived, would they be ready? Or would it become an even greater tragedy because nobody saw it coming? Now, here's the really fascinating part. And this might surprise you. If Odin didn't know about Ragnarok, how would he treat Loki? Think about it. In the original mythology, Odin both loves and fears Loki because he knows Loki will trigger the end of everything. But what if he didn't know that? Can you imagine Odin raising Loki as a true son without suspicion or fear? What would you do if you had no reason to distrust someone you love? Odin might have been the perfect father figure to Loki, and perhaps, just perhaps, Loki would never have become the enemy of Asgard at all. But here's where it gets really complex. Loki's nature as a trickster isn't just about rebellion against Odin's authority. It's about challenging the status quo, pushing boundaries, forcing change. Would Loki still be Loki without that tension? Or would he become something entirely different, maybe even boring? That's the real question, isn't it? Would Loki's betrayal have happened if Odin had treated him with complete trust and love from the beginning? Maybe Loki's schemes were always a cry for attention, a desperate attempt to prove his worth to a father who was always watching him with one suspicious eye. And what about Baldur's death, the event that truly turned Loki into Asgard's enemy? Without Odin's paranoid preparations and constant fear of prophecy, would the circumstances that led to Baldur's vulnerability even exist? Would the mistletoe arrow ever find its mark? Now let's talk about something you might not have considered. What about Hugin and Munin, Odin's ravens? Their names mean thought and memory. and they fly across all 9 realms every day, bringing Odin information about everything happening in the cosmos. But here's the thing, would Odin even need them if he never gained cosmic wisdom? Think about it. The ravens exist because Odin understands the value of knowledge and information. But if he never sacrificed his eye, would he even realize how important it is to know what's happening everywhere? Would he be content just ruling Asgard without caring about the bigger picture?
Can you see how this changes everything? Without his ravens, Odin would be blind to threats, opportunities, and the subtle movements of fate across the 9 realms. He'd be like a king who never leaves his castle, powerful within his walls, but completely unaware of the world outside. And what about his other sacrifices? You see, losing his eye wasn't Odin's only sacrifice for wisdom. He also hung himself from Yggdrasil, the world tree, pierced by his own spear, for 9 days and nights without food or water. This brutal ordeal taught him the secrets of the runes, the magical symbols that could reshape reality itself. But here's what's fascinating. Would Odin without the eye sacrifice ever make that second sacrifice? Would someone who chose comfort over wisdom ever choose to endure 9 days of agony for knowledge? I don't think so. Do you? This means our alternate Odin wouldn't just lack foresight, he'd also lack the runes. No magical knowledge, no ability to cast spells, no power to bind or unbind fate itself. He'd be strong, sure, but he'd be just another warrior god in a cosmos full of them. And what about Sleipnir, Odin's 8-legged horse? Would this magnificent steed even exist in our alternate timeline? Well, Sleipnir was born from one of Loki's schemes, when Loki transformed into a mare to distract a giant stallion. But if Odin trusted Loki completely and never suspected his trickery, would Loki even need to resort to such desperate measures? Maybe in this timeline, problems would be solved through honest communication instead of elaborate schemes. But then again, maybe some problems would never be solved at all, because sometimes you need a trickster's cunning to overcome impossible odds. And here's a question that might keep you up at night. Would humanity be better or worse off? In the original mythology, Odin created humans and gave them the gift of poetry and wisdom. But if he never valued wisdom enough to sacrifice for it, would he even think to share it with mortals? Maybe humans in this alternate timeline would be simpler, happier, living without the burden of knowledge, but also without the inspiration to create, to wonder, to strive for something greater. Do you see it? The loss of Odin's wisdom wouldn't just change the gods, it would ripple down into the lives of every human being. Think about it. Without Odin's gift of poetry and inspiration, would we still have the Eddas? Would we have epic tales of heroes challenging fate? Would humans even develop the concept of striving against impossible odds? Now, consider the gods themselves. How would they react to a different Odin? Would they still respect him as the All-Father if he wasn't all-knowing? Would Thor still look up to his father if Odin was just another warrior rather than the wisest being in existence? The power dynamics in Asgard would be completely different. Maybe the gods would be more equal, making decisions together instead of following Odin's prophetic guidance. Sounds nice, right? But what happens when you need a strong leader to make the hard choices? And what about fate itself? In Norse myth, fate is woven by the Norse, but Odin's actions constantly try to nudge fate, to buy time, to twist destiny. Without his wisdom and foresight, would fate be more rigid? Would the gods and mortals alike be swept along by destiny, unable to change anything? Here's the terrifying part. An Odin who never sacrificed for wisdom might become complacent. Asgard could grow weak, unprepared, and vulnerable to threats from giants or rival gods. Now, you might be wondering, is it really worth it to sacrifice so much for wisdom? That's the eternal question, isn't it? Throughout history, humans have faced the same dilemma. Do we pursue wisdom even when it hurts? Or do we choose comfort and ignorance? Odin's story is a mirror for all of us. Every time you make a tough choice, every time you step out of your comfort zone to learn and grow, you're following in Odin's footsteps. What makes Odin's sacrifice so powerful is that he didn't do it for personal gain. He did it to protect his people, to understand the universe, to face fate head on. So what about you? If you stood before Mimir's well and had the chance to gain true wisdom, but had to give up something precious, what would you choose? Are you willing to pay the price for real understanding? Maybe the real lesson of Odin's myth is this: wisdom isn't just about knowing, it's about being brave enough to make sacrifices and using what you learn to help others. Odin with both eyes might have lived a more comfortable life, but he would never have become the legendary leader who inspired gods, heroes, and humans alike. What do you think? Was Odin's sacrifice worth it? If you were in his place, what would you choose? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read every single one, and I love seeing your takes on these epic what-ifs. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell. There's a lot more mythological what-if content coming your way. Until next time, keep questioning, keep wondering, and remember, sometimes the greatest wisdom comes from the hardest choices.